I always believe the good tree always bear the good fruits. Good fruits always bear the good seeds. And again, this good seeds is bear to the good plant, and when this plant matures, that becomes the good tree. Education is like that. Education is like that because education is always related to the teaching, learning, teacher, teaching institutes. Once they are the good tree, they can bear any type of the good fruits. So 30 years before, faculty member like you had taught me, and that's why I am holding this chair here. So I always grateful and thankful to my teacher who taught me 30 years before to the architecture, planning, and the transport. So with these words, I welcome all the faculty members as well as the students in this training program. So let us start here from here. When it talks about the education, it means we are talking to the self-development first. Whatever the education I am taking, the first priority I should develop myself. Then gradually to go to the social development part also, because in society where we live, the hostel where we live, the campus where we live, that also influence our education level. And for that purpose, we are coming to the architecture colleges, engineering colleges to give education. When we have the sufficient education, that also makes it understand for the social responsibility, what your duty, at the same time, what your rights. This education also helps us to understand social and national integration, national spirit, that is important. And similarly, this education also helps us for the spiritual development. But now the topic that is given here, the education that is related to the sustainable development. It in short is known as ESD. According to the UNESCO, ESD is the base of all level and all types of learning that can help us to transform the person, individual, and the society. And once you talk about the all level and all type of learning, it's learning to know, learning to be, learning to live together, learning to do, and how this learning can help us and transform us, individual as well as the society. Whenever there is so many scientific definition for the education for the sustainable development, but just see by this photographs here that is a newspaper cutting. Can you say that is the education for the sustainable development? Yes, because the students are taking part in the beach clean drive in the Mumbai. Faculty never taught them as a students, and they students have gone there and they have started this drive to clean the beach. That is nothing but the sustainable development through the education, through the education. Just have a slide for this thing. College students conduct mega cleanup at the Juhu beach. That's the Publication Times of India. So that is also example of the education for the sustainable development. With this simple understanding, spite of so many technical definitions and so many components and attributes for this sustainable education for the sustainable development, here these two pictures makes us understand if you are doing something good for the society and the nation, particularly the college students, teachers, faculty, all these things, they are contributing education for the sustainable development. Second terminology, we are talking about the quality education. Once you talk about the quality education, it means we try to ensure inclusive and equitable quality. Inclusive in the poor people should also get the opportunity, and equitable that should be equal to everyone, male or female, boys or girls, rich and poor. And after doing all getting this quality education that promotes our lifelong learning opportunity for us. To achieve this target, the various parameters and various targets had formulated, such as the primary, secondary education should be free, so that that can be available to everyone. Everyone. This pre-primary education, there have the equal access to everyone. Similarly, whenever the technical, or vocational, or higher education we are taking, that should be affordable to us. So, like that, various targets have been finalized and formulated, and these are some of them you can see here. Education for sustainable development and global citizenship also remarkable. That target gives the opportunity to get the employments across the globe. Across the globe. So once again, we talked about the quality education that can help us to achieve this target. And through this target, we are able to provide the sustainable development through the education. Just after this proper understanding of the education for sustainable development and the quality education, just see this report that was prepared by the UNESCO, that is the International Commission on Education for the 21st Century. It was prepared in 93. At that time, whoever the prepared the expert member there, they understand very well. If in the 21st century comes, there will be a lot of tension in the field of education. The tension between the global education and the local education. There will be tension between the universal education and the individual education. There will be a tension between the spiritual education and the material education. Really. So that is the things at that time they had understand when the 21st century will come, this various type of the tension in the education sector will happen. Will happen. And for that purpose, they have prepared some guidelines also. Here we can see the tension between the tradition and modernity, tension between the long-term education and short-term education. There is a tension between the need for competition and concern for the quality of opportunity. Quality of opportunity also very, very important. Many people getting the opportunity, but that's the quality, as the qualification, as for the skill development, as for the experience. So this document is very, very important to understand how the education can help us for the development at the universal level, at the global level, at local level, at the individual. Now let us move forward to just try to understand much in depth. After the international things, let us come to the Indian part. Ambani Birla report generally it is known like that, but in fact the name is actually the policy framework for the reforms in peace. If you remember, during the 1998, the Prime Minister Council of Trade and Industry, they appointed 6 special subject groups to develop a policy framework for private investment in the education sector, health sector, and the rural development sector. So in 1998, the Prime Minister Council that the trade and industry they have appointed. Let us just focus on the education sector. The report on the policy framework for reforms in education was prepared by the Reliance chief Sri Mukesh Ambani as a convener. He was there of this committee, and Adit Birla Group head Sri Kumar Manga Birla was a member. And they have submitted this report in 2000 to the government of India. Just have a look. After these things, after a long gap, the government favors this report for the education reforms. That are very, very important things to understand the importance of the report prepared by these high profile people who were running the industries. They are providing the millions of jobs to the people. And main silent feature of this Amani and the Birla report was they're just talking about the fee hike in the university and the deep politicalization of the campus. They're also talking about the FDI and education, setting of private and foreign universities. Some legislature is also required so that the private university can be established, particularly in the field of the science and technology, management and finance, like that. At the same time, encouragement of the school of learning to upgrade content and facility to make more what market-oriented approach for the education part. Of course, these are the some features they have highlighted in this particular report. Once we see the international report that is prepared by the UNESCO, what will be the tension of the 21st century? Now we have to understand when the 2000 report submitted their perspective or their understanding. Just have a look on this slide. How they have fixed the vision for the education. They're telling that to create a competitive and cooperative knowledge-based society for our nation, for our nation or country. And for this purpose, this group have formulated so many objectives so that we can realize the vision. The vision. Just one I have taken for the example. See, they have written that we have provide quality primary education facility to every citizen of India within a distance of 1 kilometer from his residence. That is the one of the objectives they have formulated to achieve the vision for the education. Just have it translate this objective in our Master plan. Here I am just taking the example of Delhi master plan. Once you put the hierarchy of the urban development, just on the neighborhood having the population 10,000, just let us say that is the 2,500 households, right? At that time, the primary education is required to provide in this area for the development of this neighborhood. And for that purpose, area and the number is given, and that can detail out the local area plan. Something like that. It means once the vision comes and once it started to translate in the urban development, urban planning, and architecture education, that is well known as education for the sustainable development. Apart from this thing, for the quality primary education within a distance of 1 kilometer from the residence, they have also given so many another strategic objectives like the smart school and the creating of the better facility like that. So just for our unique understandings, I have taken this today how this type of the vision, even whatever we formulate in our master plan, development plan, that's also contribute in the education sector for the sustainable development. Now let us come to the some international parts. Once we're talking about the education for the sustainable development, we have to try to achieve the sustainable development goal by 2030. The most important things here that a discussion is required whenever we talk about the education, that the education to the student. The students come for the education. So in this case, the education should be affordable and accessible. That required. That required. At any cost and every cost. That should be accessible to the student. That is the one of the most important criteria once we talk about the sustainable development through the education. Second thing is educated to the students. Qualification and quality of teachers are very, very important. Very, very important. Once we pass out for the good institutions, really we are the good tree and we are bearing the good fruits. And the good fruits were the good seeds. And that's why we are able to educate other students and the new generation. For that purpose, quality of teacher and their quality qualification is very, very important to understand. Another thing is, once it talks about the education, means we are talking about the educational institute student. Sufficient in number and proper spatial distribution of institutions is very, very important. If you see the directive of the Council of Architecture, maximum colleges in particular some states, still the other states don't have the sufficient number of the architecture schools. So in this case, the number insufficiency is required, but at the same time, the equal distribution and proper spatial distribution of institutions is also very, very important. Another things we're talking about is educational infrastructure. It means nowadays we're talking about the physical infrastructure and the digital infrastructure, not only for the students, for the educator also. And in spite of all doing all these things, after discussing all these points, finally, what is the outcome of this education? Is this education is good for the family, society, and the nation? So these are the important points. Once we incorporate in the educational system in our country at any level, that can help us to get the sustainable development. Now, these are the some points in this slide I just try to highlight. What are the points to be in order? First important thing is the policy. Policy. A policy we have the thick so that we can monitor, we can control, we can improve as per the requirement. So first important thing is education policy. Second thing, education a learning environment. What type of the environment do we have? 30 years before, what was the environment in University Bhopal, now known as many Bhopal, had the different things. They have changed a lot. So like that, the good micro environment, learning environment is important and that can help us a lot. Pool of educator, same type of the teaching, same type of the faculty, sometimes invite these experts, invite the outsider just to share their experience, just to understand how these educators are educating their own children, own students, in their own college, in their own country. And that experience is very, very important to achieve education for the sustainable development. Another thing, availability of the students and coaching are always required. That should be available. For that purpose, the courses what are run by the various institutions, particularly the architecture courses, planning courses, that should be known to the students, known to the parents, known to those who are the mentor for them. And apart from this thing, local government, urban local body, local community, local society, that roles are also very important. Because finally, this educational institute is established as per the development norms prescribed by the local authorities. Let us say this is the master plan, a zonal plan, or something like that. So once this point will be in order, the education can give the much contribution for the development of sustainable development. Now let us come to the this Council of Architecture part. In 2020, this minimum standard for architecture education was framed by the Council of Architecture. What is the minimum standard required so that this architecture education can also contribute in the development of sustainable development path. So this one here we can see for every core courses they are putting some credit, and for the elective courses they are giving the 10% as a credit part. And once you go to the detail of this professional elective, we find that they are given the sustainable citizen community as one of the professional electives, which are the 10% weighting. In fact, this document, in fact, the approach of the Council of Architecture is also to provide the sustainable citizen community. Or for that purpose, this architecture education is also very, very important. Just have a look for this PG course. Again, that is the minimum standard for architecture education for the PG program as a guideline that was framed in 2006 by the Council of Architecture. Here also they have suggested some list of Master of Architecture courses, and you can find that they also suggest the Master of Architecture from the sustainable human habitat and sustainable architecture part. So that is also a very remarkable steps they have taken, and in their suggested lead we are able to get the sustainable human habitat and the sustainable architecture. Now, this report we should understand as a faculty member, as a student, as a professional, as a policy maker. This is the perspective plan for the growth of architecture education prepared by Council of Architecture, and that reports have given the complete proper understanding where the things are missing. Where the things are missing. Educations are there. 30 years before I was a student of architecture, even there are so many colleges, so many architects, so many institutions, so many faculty members imparting the architecture education. But really this education is helpful for the sustainable development. Just this graph they have prepared in this particular report. In 2006 and 7, the number of architecture college was 137, and 2018-19 session that become 553. It means that the number of colleges are increased. At the same time, the number of seats in the Bachelor of Architecture seat from 2006 to 2018-19 has increased. Initially, the seat was just 6,000 plus. Now it become 24,000 plus. But once you go through this report, we have so many points we have to properly understood. And once we do that, then only their architecture education imparted by the various architecture institutions in our country can help us to get the sustainable development. First, here just I highlight from this report, it was realized that the overall quality of education is not rising to the level as should be. That is one of the output of this report. Just go and see that. Even when I was looking this one, I was so surprised. Still, we are realizing this thing, but what are the things missing? Why we are not able to take that stage, so that the quality of education, particularly the architecture education, we can maintain. We can maintain because the number of architecture colleges still today less than number of engineering colleges. So that is the things we should properly understood once we are going to open the new college, old college, the managing the college, the imparting the architecture education. That is very, very important to understand. Second thing, institutes are not able to maintain council minimum standard of architecture education, resulting in a failure of standard. Another surprising thing. Third point, graduating architects and dismal opportunity for the employment. third surprising. Prime face here looks that mushrooming of institutions without a defined policy, as well as the absence of the roadmap to be one of the reasons for the type of the problem. Once these problems are well understood, in consequent slide, we just try to understand how we can improve it, so that our education system in general, or the technical education, or the architecture education can help us to get proper sustainable development in a town, city, society, and the nation. After the National Education Policy 2020 came, it was the Minister of Human Resource Development, Government of India. And here you can see, I have highlighted how whole things this just try to put it on the sustainable development goal part, so that we can equitable and a vibrant knowledge society we can get by getting this high quality education to all. And finally, the whole country and the society is going to be converted as a global knowledge superpower. Superpower. So once you go through this National Education Policy 2020, you can find out still what is the aspiration goal of 21st century regarding the education, including the Sustainable Development Goal 4, is very, very important. And that thing under this policy, they have tried to address it. So now it is a part of the institute, it's a part of the educator, it's a part of the learners who are going to get the education so that we can achieve this target here. Just the based on this sustainable development goal, this national education policy 2020 is based on the five pillars here we can understand that is the access, affordability, equality, quality, and accountability. Access to the various master plan development program and the government program and policy can get it. Affordability is also very, very important. Consequent slide, you can see what is the education we are taking from the private architecture college and what is the education I'm getting from government. Then how this makes a difference, and that really makes a difference. Followed by the equity and the quality and the accountability, all these things are here. And ICT technology education is very, very important because that makes the global leader in providing quality education not only to the Indian youth but also to the youth globally. So quality education based on this principle of sustainable development goal is the most important factor to achieve the target, to achieve the goal, and to make our country a great power of the education and the development. Now, just have a look at this slide. I have just tried to copy it from the this pamphlet we have prepared for this program. What is the finally aims to acquire? Aims to acquire is knowledge, and this knowledge to skill, so that we will not only get the development part, but we have the sustainable lifestyle. Due to COVID-19, we understand what is the meaning of lifestyle and what is the meaning of sustainable health practice, social well-being. So these are the important things what we have to acquire, So once we acquire it, the knowledge gradually started to convert to the skill, and that knowledge and that skill is promote sustainable lifestyle, sustainable health practices, and social well-being, and something like that. Apart from this, what are the current issue nowadays? The human right and gender equality and global citizens. All these things we have achieved through this knowledge to skill, so that can help us to promote sustainable development. Just have a look here. One example I would like to quote here: Atmanirbhar Bharat, self-reliant Indian mission. During the COVID-19, this type of the mission has come again, and we have very read in the various newspapers and sometimes in the government documents slogans like the vocal for local and local for global, make in India, make for world, brain to brain gain. Brain long back. I have remembered 20-25 years before in the newspaper, in the article we have seen like that, the brain drain. Now the time has come to brain gain. All the slogans that is under the Atmanirbhar Bharat, a self-reliant Indian mission, can be achieved without the sustainable development? No. Can we achieve it without education? No. It means education for sustainable development is as important as whatever the slogans we are taking in the talking about Bharat, that is vocal for local and local for global and made in India and made for world. All these are very, very important. I just want to highlight some more points here. Just see the five pillars of the self-reliant India, that is the Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan, and here the economy, infrastructure, system, demography, and the demand. From architecture point of view, just from the education point of view, just try to understand here. Here it is not an incremental change or growth in economy, but quantum jump is required. How the quantum jump is possible? A prosperous country in the terms of education and the sustainable development, they can make a quantum jump. Here the infrastructure that represent the modern India. Now the design for infrastructure, building, campus, residence, all things comes under the architecture education part. And a whole system nowadays is technology driven. Remember we use the zero point 0.1 rotary pen, zero point 0.2 rotary pen, zero point 0.3 at that time. Now the thing has changed. Technology has come. New technology gives a different view of the building plan. Even you can prepare the plan automatically, system and technology generate elevation and section. So now this Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan and that is self-reliant India, that is possible. That is possible. For that purpose, we should be able to define the better infrastructure that represents the modern India and the technology and technological advancement and education that's required. That's required. And demography is not a problem for us with sufficient manpower available. So by using this infrastructure, system, demography, and economy, once we are able to utilize the power of demand and supply line, that is much, much help. And here again I want to highlight some more important thing here. Just see education towards the sustainable development on the way of the self. Just remember, before the COVID-19, the PP kit was a very difficult to get it. But suddenly, once the government is taken for the way of the self-reliant, the production of PP kit and the N95 mask in India increased from almost negligible to 2 lakhs per day. Similarly, various funds are generated by the ITU alumni. What was the aim there? To support the mission towards the self-reliance. And India own made in India 5G network. Just see, this last month that was published in the Economic Times, own 5G network in the final stage. India now part of the sixth development. It is said by the Honorable Minister of Electronics and IT Government of India. Just see, just try to understand the education towards the sustainable development that provides a self-reliant country, self-reliant society, self-reliant of town and city, and that is possible. That is possible. Only thing is, sustainable component we have to incorporate in education, and education should absorb and train the learners for the sustainable development path. So that is the way we have to go forward. Just the example here. Once we're talking about the self-reliant organization, there are many organizations. Still, we have seen steel production during the COVID second wave. They have provided the oxygen across the country. Whenever talks about IIT and technocrats and engineers, whenever talks about the organization like AIMS, medical science and doctors, whenever talks about the DRDO, ISRO, all these things we understand very well because they have done the research. You remember 2017, ISRO sent 104 satellites in one go. They also break the Russia. It's self-reliant organization. It also have the full cooperation and contribution from the education if the sustainable part, sustainable development, technological advancement part is incorporated in education. So most challenging thing to achieve this target is the educational institute. And I'm happy that the knowledge has taken this topic for the development of faculty development program. Of course, it is online, but this type of the approach and understanding can help us give the better understanding to the faculty member and the PhD students that can help us for our sustainable development goals to achieve in 2030. Just one more example I would like to give from the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, where we are working at here. That is the affordable rental housing complex. During that time, COVID time, when the urban migrants and poor, they are facing the problem. They're facing the problem. At that time, Government of India, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, they have launched this program known as Affordable Rental Housing Complex, known as ARC. For migrant worker and urban poor, just have a look under this thing, what are the various provisions I have taken and how this has progressed from July 2022, March 2020, July 2022, March 2022. Just within 2 years, how this type of the rental housing complex for the migrant workers, for the urban poor are helping a lot. That's why the education in architecture and planning that is give a significant contribution the national development. Just have a once these programs happened, All India Radio, News, they have on the Twitter, they have these very things here. One of them is MOU we signed within the states and union directly to provide ease of living to urban migrants in the country. In the country. In the country. That is reported by the All India Radio at that time. Once the scheme launched, as an architect, as a planner, as a faculty member, as an educator, as a learner, we should understand there are two different models they have taken for achieve this target. First model, they say that utilize the existing government funded vacant houses to convert into art through the public-private partnership or the public agency. Here, whatever the vacant houses that is funded by the government is still vacant, convert it. Second thing is, those who are the public or private entity, they should construct, operate, maintain this type of the housing complex on their own available vacant land. Sufficient of lands are available in various government agencies, private agencies, even educational institutions also. So these two different model have been adopted, and people, whenever I talk about this thing, people immediately ask, what is the progress? Just have a look on this. The latest that I have taken from our website is a 5,478 existing government funded vacant house converted into wards for the urban migrants. Proposal for converting 7,000 plus vacant house under this scheme in the state of Gujarat, Himachal Pradesh, Haryana, even Madhya Pradesh, Uttarakhand and Rajasthan is the pipeline. Just some photographs here we can see how these houses are converted in the Chandigarh, Rajasthan, Gujarat, and the UT of Jammu and Kashmir also. Just have a look here. When these things comes, at that time 698 government funded vacant house in the Rajkot, Gujarat had been converted into affordable rental housing complex. That is the photographs we can see here. Again, association that your organization we know very well. They also welcome to this type of growth because that help us to speed the return of the migrant workers in town and city. In case of Rajasthan, Chittorgarh, 480 vacant houses have been converted into homes. So this way the things are going, and very aware when we're talking about the layout design, the site plan or something, architecture is a significant contribution to the designing of this housing complex. So that also provide sustainable development for the urban poor, urban migrants, those who are living in our own town and city and contributing GDP in informally and formally both the way. So that is the important thing, and that is the overall summary I can say. What is the detail of government fund vacant houses in the various states? What is the number of houses available for this scheme? And what is the things already converted? Out of 83,000 houses are available under the different government sectors. And now around the 5,000 plus have been converted. So this education for the sustainable development now is leading for the sustainable city and community through this type of scheme also. This type of the scheme also. And that's why the education is the more important things once we talk about sustainable development, sustainable city or sustainable community like that. Let me give one more example from the other Ministry of Education. Here after the COVID-19, the digital education and dynamic skilling both are the two different terms, but through this thing we are also achieving to the Atmanirbhar Bharat. that is given the Ministry of Education programs. Under this thing, you can also say when we have established and we are designing a plan for the school building should be excellence in water, sanitation, and hygiene. For that thing, Swachh Vidyalaya Puraskar was also launched by the Ministry of Education, Government of India. Just have a look at this thing. I would like to highlight to you that it's just 1st January 2022, 100 days reading campaign starting from the 1st January 22, and that is the reading campaign. The complete one document has been prepared, and just one page I would like to share with you because I have to do the justice with the other speaker also. So I try to maintain the time here. Just see how to make a reading enjoyable through the activity. A case study of Rajasthan. Just go through it and just read how this case study really promoting, encouraging the people, and that is really a great steps toward the reading campaign that is a national-wide initiative for creating a joyful reading experience for the children. Really, the reading is a joyful thing. I remember when the time the doctorate in IIT also doing the Center for Transportation System and something like the civil department. At that time, we have written so many technical people, so many technical people, so many technical people of all these things. And at that time, our professor said, even you read 5 research papers in a one day, in a week, you can read 35. And in this way, if you maintain within a year, we can read more than 1,000 papers. And that is really practically happened. Practically happened. So that is the things we can do that. That is the reading campaign, that's a national-wide initiative. So these documents we should also sometimes go and encourage the people to read what already happened, what likely to be happened, and that is very, very important to understand. Now I can also go to this one of the also good research paper written by the senior project manager to the right and to work in the rights of children, the youth, World Future Council. She always say whatever the things were investing for the education for the sustainable development, that is the best investment in the world. Why? Because teachers, teachings, teaching institutions, they are the catalyst for the sustainable development. Teachers, teaching institute, all these things are fine for the education. So that is also very good research paper that I have gone through it. I just would like to share with you. And apart from this, two or more research paper that is published, the development of teacher professional skills in education for the sustainable development. Because finally they are the educators. They are the educators. They are the educators. So that we should understand. Second thing is protecting the future. Then what is the role of school education in sustainable development? An Indian case study written by a person belonging to the British Council, UK. Their perspective, how they visualize the Indian case study, how they are just try to give the good and bad things, all the things, and then how they are trying to judge the role of school education in sustainable development in Indian context. That we also give a good insight to understand how the education for the sustainable development can help us. Once we are going through these documents, I will find so many research things, and that is one of the things, the sand wash program. Sand wash program. This type of program already in our country. Only thing is we have to properly incorporate in our curriculum activity, because this is the program in which the children, youth, and adults work together scientifically, monitor and critically evaluate the problem facing their teaching environment. That is related to the program to the beach environment. We can say that is the most important thing nowadays, with the reason of the water quality, water pollution, all these things we know very well. And under these programs, they try to adopt the proper design methodology. They try to implement practical activity. They try to take those products who can address the particular issue, so that the beach environment can be upgraded, enhanced. Such programs should be part and parcel of our education curriculum in our own architecture education, in education like that. Some another things they are also defined as the voluntary network of the school, children, teacher, principal, NGO, CBO, because they work together to monitor and enhance their environment. Such program already we have in our country. to cleaning of the beach and all these things, but now it should be in the formal way, part and parcel of the extracurricular activity in our town and city. Through the architecture education, that can be also happen because architecture students will travel a lot from one part to another part just to understand so many architecture features of the various time period so that we can maintain the traditional architecture as well as the modern architecture. And now the time has come to understand this type of the networking so that we can save our country and nation from the climatic change and we can provide for the better sustainable development through that. Once you go through it, then again one good research paper that they find that from the University of Hong Kong. They are also talking the global consistent and pillar of the sustainable development, and they have done this study on the self-perception of the first year university student. If that is possible, it is also possible for the second, first year and second year, PR course and first year the master degree courses where the students are there. Here, they have given the global consciousness. And once we talk about the global consciousness, in the next slide we can see the detail. But here the most important term that talks about the global citizens education. It is a form of the civil learning by the students addressing the global issue of the social, political, economic, and environment. Two important components. Global consciousness. We should know the ethics about the global issue. Where should be war? When should be war? Where should be peace? When should be peace? That should be known to us, and that is practically possible once you talk about the global citizen education part. And once we're maintaining the peace, it means we're maintaining our development for our future generation. That is nothing but the sustainable development. And second important thing, the global competence. The skill, what we learn from the education, the expertise we learn from the education, writing the research paper, doing the project and the turn paper, all this enable the learner to participate in the changing and developing world, and that gives a lot of opportunity for the employment across the globe. So that is the important thing to understand. And their component means global consciousness and global competency that should be part and parcel of the education part curriculum, particularly the architecture part and the town planning part, where we are doing this type of the consciousness and competency. Overall, this is a part of parcel of the education system anywhere, but once you focus it to the architecture courses, that will much better understand. Now let me concentrate on this research work what is done by the University of Hong Kong. That is global consciousness and the pillar for the sustainable development. If you go through this thing, these two and this diagram they have prepared, I would like to share with you. First, they have done a student's safe perceived knowledge increase. Once they started to talk, what is the thing they want to talk? They are talking about the consciousness and about the sustainable development. When they started to talk to the students, the first year students who joined the university courses, at that time, their self-perception for the knowledge. What knowledge regarding what? Knowledge related to the climate change, air quality, waste disposal, biodiversity. Like that, they have different perspectives. And through this, they have seen, try to observe really what is the percentage of the students, they have no change. But majority of the students have changed. So that is important thing. These things they have created the first semester student. I remember long back, once we joined to that time University Bhopal, many Bhopal at that time 20, 30 years. At that time the car was not allowed, vehicle was not allowed. So we are just putting a cycle in our hostel and become so happy due to that good practice. That is good practice in the IT Ruhi also. Now we love to use the cycle in our own town and city. Whatever the things they have trained, whatever the test they have given, that knowledge is still perceived by us, even in this. Second graphs here you can see, once they have given to the highlight of all the important components of the sustainable development, their behavior started to change. Their behavior started to change. What type of the recycled paper they want to use, what type of the recycled material they want to use, all this behavior, self-perceived behavior is starting to change. So this research was really a very nice way to understand if that can be done for the first year student of the University of Hong Kong, this type of the research work can be done in our own college. And when the faculty member come out with the good result of this thing that is published in the various research papers here and there, that can make us understand to do that, and that can help a lot for the policy making and the program making like that. Now, let me give some good example from our own country. Good practices stories on education for sustainable development in our own country. Our own country. Yes, 2014 this document was. Now it is 2022. Almost 8 years passed. In between, a lot of case study had come. Now that you need to document, document it, and that can help us, our students, learners. And this prime duty belongs to the faculty member. What is this good practice story education for the sustainable development in India? That is the prime objective of this project was that to raise the awareness after the education for the sustainable development in empowering citizens to achieve the transition towards the more sustainable society. 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 So just I give one glimpse for it. So we have to go further. In this report, we find that they have shortlisted 15 projects from the country. From the country. They have done all the 15 I have highlighted here. We can see that the various institutions who have implemented this project and taken this project. And after the long discussion, all these things, UNESCO has selected this 15 short-listed project for India, where the education for the sustainable development is much important. We can see the name of the area here, and you can see the serial number 9. The Department of Environment, Government of NCP of Delhi has also done the two project, and this project they have shortlisted. Out of this shortlisted, they have selected some more project to do that. Just have it, just have it. That's the G Media. We know very well their project they have shortlisted. What are the slogan of this project? My Earth, Might. My Earth, Might. Under these things, what they have done, they have started the campaign that is the planting more than 10 lakh sampling across the country. Across the country. More than 1.8 crore trees across the country. And such heritage sites like the Qutub Minar, Purana Kila, Red Fort, Taj Mahal, and other places they have planted the things under these things. My Earth, Might, Mighty. And that has been done by the media house. Media house. That is very important to understand. Many times when you so active on the social media, sometimes this type of the media also give a proper understanding and create awareness to implementing the knowledge, education to conserve the environment. Conserve the environment. So this campaign is a unique example of contemporary approach by the media house which is creating, promoting sustainability. So my duty, my earth that will give media initiative and this program and these things they have shortlisted by the UNESCO. Just have a things, another things that is selected one. They have 15 they have shortlisted. Out of 15, they have selected someone. Here I can take that's a national park in Bharatpur in the Rajasthan. How the things happen? How the things happen? The whole story focused on one family member. They started to give the scholarship of the 500 rupees per month, per month. And due to this scholarship, their learning has changed, perception has changed, understanding has changed, appreciation for the conservation issues has changed related to the national park Bharatpur in the Rajasthan. That's very important to understand. Whenever the architecture and planning students get the opportunity, just try to see how this program, what are the uniqueness in this program, just providing to the scholarship on the competitive basis for the 50 school going children that of the this park staff and the local community has changed drastically things here. That is a very important thing to understand. And by going with it, we can understand how the education for the sustainable development helping to us, helping to us, helping to us. Just now, give me another example. When we're talking about the education, we are talking about the skill development. When we are talking about the gender equality in education, training is more important. Training is more important. Training is more important. Once you train manpower, male or female, that can change the scene. That can change the scene. Skill development is very, very important. By the skill development and education, gender equality can be maintained. Here under this even project, what they have done, they trained the women salt farmer in the Gujarat. We know if this type of the farmer salt farming is there, and but they are not. They are working without any contract, and that's why their livelihoods are very poor, very less. What they have done, what is this UNEP program and the SEVA program? We know that is the Self Employment Women's Association and the governments. They come forward and they have estimated the 1,000 women they want to train. What is the purpose? For the solar panel, training in the field of solar panel, training in the field of solar pump technician programs, under which they have targeted the 1,000 women for do that. And United Nations News, they have highlighted this thing. Here the date you can see, that is the 26th February 2020. 2020. Just they highlighted the thing how the women salt farmer from the state of Gujarat, when they trained them for the solar panel and the solar pump technician, the becomes so success. Just have a look on this slide. And now this manpower is doing a lot of things. Solar panel is only important. We know the clean energy. Solar pump is also important. But now this woman has taken as a skill development training, and this way the sustainable development goal they try to achieve, including gender equality, affordable and clean energy. That is the thing. That things, that things we have to incorporate in architecture education. That things the teachers should write the turn paper. PhD thesis should come with this type of the case study that can help a nation, the society. Those who are taking the decision and making the policy, they can do that. They can do that. Such training, they provide you with the green job. Green job. Once the job is the green, then obviously we are moving toward the sustainable development. So education, still skill development, all these trends are very, very important to make us understand. Understand. Now let us move. This is another things I would highlight to here, that is the transforming education for the sustainable India background. Fantastic. Last year in the January, that was they prepared this thing and published. Really, how the transforming education for the sustainable future. Any transform in education can help us to sustainable future, sustainable development. Only things we have to understand. We have to understand. We have to understand. Many times our syllabus are so good, so fantastic, but same thing not taught to the students. They're not taught to learners. So that barrier we have to cross it. That barrier we have to cross it. So that the education that is required for the sustainable future, sustainable city, sustainable community, sustainable livelihoods, that is very, very important. So this is also one of the nice documents. That's a research, how this research can be helping us the climatic change education. How this is education is helping us for the sustainable cities and communities. Once we go through this document, we're so happy to understand. You really the right approach, the different perspective, they just try to highlight. Just to highlight. Now, I am coming almost to the end of my presentation. Uh, Need of framework. What is the concluding remarks I am trying to tell here? Integration of education, the system development. This integration we know very well. But have you defined the framework? That framework is required. College level, institution level, university level, this framework should be prepared by the experts. And this is the National Online Faculty Development Program. Now the burden automatically transferred to the faculty. Challenging thing is, once we try to integrate these things in the existing education system, then who will bear the burden? Teacher education, student education, public education, technology education. There are various types of the existing education system we have. Which education system incorporate the integration of education with the sustainable development, that is matters. That is matters. That is matters. And that is very, very important to understand here. Once when the students at that time, making a model itself was a professional job, making a 2 point and 3 point perspective on the tracing sheet by the rotary pen. It was a very challenging task. Challenging task. Now, due to change in the technology, the things have gone. Things have gone. The skill of the hand and the fingers have gone. But at that time, in these circumstances, now the another challenge will come: how the sustainable part can be incorporated in the education system. Who had taught us how to clean the beach? Who can taught us we have to restore and preserve the water bodies, our own water supply in our own towns? So this framework is really framed by the expert, particularly the faculty member here. I think some speakers are open, someone talking. Just another thing is for the concluding remark. I will finish within 5 minutes. So people are just, I think, becoming restless. But anyhow, second thing, the learning and the earning. That is both go together in our Indian country. So enhance learning and skill development. For that purpose, curriculum revision is very, very important. Board of studies are framed, big boss are there, they revise this time to time, they accept this back. But many times we are going to take care of the students. Those organizations who are going to give the job to the students, their participation is also required. So that the students will pass out after the 5 years and the master degree and the PhD, they can be absorbed, they can be absorbed here. So whole thing is how we are learning in the institute and how we are earning the society, earning the society. So this curriculum revision is also very, very important. While the board of study not going to help us, those who are providing the job, that's what the government has given the at that time that report preparation to the Ambani and this is Birla. Because these are the people in the market who are doing a lot of job creation for the apart from the government sector. Whatever the learning assessment we have, that should be properly document today, tomorrow. Somebody go through. And this documentation helps a lot. Whenever I visit to the IIT Delhi and some another IIT, I find that still there are many students who are preparing the civil service examination. They have the newspaper cutting, Indian Express and Asian Age. Good article they are just keeping last 4 to 5 years. This documentation, this good article that is published in the newspaper is good for them, their own career, their own preparation of the examination. But for others people, it is just reading in 5 minutes and throwing the newspaper and chapter is closed. Sometimes good article, good documentation, much helpful to make the new journalism understand how we can keep the sustainability. Another thing is the skills and the job opportunity. That also go side by side. So whenever the skill development, that may be the computer software, another things at the same time, job opportunities should interlink, and that should be well understood by the educator and the learner. Learning and career opportunities is well understood because almost all of us who are getting trying to get education for the career opportunity, and people are going to the abroad for the career opportunity because with the global education citizenship, things like that. So that perspective, that good initiative at the institution level, particularly at the bachelor or master degree, can help us a lot. Second thing, we're talking about the technological advancement and enhancement in ICT in education, both for rural India and urban India, because during this COVID-19, once everything started to shift online, then imparting the giving to the education in the rural area, it becomes a little bit difficult because internet connection, the speed of internet, quality, all these things. But then now the time has come, technological advancement is achieved, and that can enhance in the education, not only the urban India, but in the rural India. Most important, another thing, the repository of the education data. That is very, very important. All records related to the institution, teacher, and the student in digital form together. And single window digital is ability to make available education resources in national and regional level. That is important to us. Whatever the educational resources are things are there. In my presentation also, most of the time I quoted the source or why I have taken a picture in such a way you automatically you can find out what is the source of this information. So this repository of the education data is also very, very important. That can help us. That can help us to understand how our forefathers have done good practices for the sustainable development. Another important thing is we have seen the skill development and employment opportunity that comes in the Prime Minister Kaushal Vikas Yojana. How they are recognizing of the prior learning things. What is the orientation programs that they are giving. And at present, see under this Skill India Park, Kaushal Bharat, Kushal Bharat, 50 lakh certificates is almost going to be distributed for this. Now, another thing is the updated technology and enhancement education and the architecture. I'll highlight to here under the Prime Minister Awas Yojana, one scheme is taken that is known as Lighthouse Project. And this Lighthouse Project, the slide I am talking about the Ranchi in Jharkhand, from the Jharkhand. What is the technology they are using under this scheme? The precast concrete construction system that is a 3D volumetric. In other words, I can say 3D printing. 3D printing. I can say like that. Just to understand as the architecture students, as the architecture educator, planners, and all the expert in the transport and other field, how this architecture knowledge, what that is given in our construction books and chapters and assignment and exam. Now this 3D volumetric can help us. So first, here you can see how they are making the things like that. Second, they are doing all the testing part here. And after that, they are carrying here, and this house is going to be built. That is the lighthouse project in city of Ranchi, Jharkhand, under the Prime Minister Awas Yojana, and the technology they are using the precast concrete construction system to follow that is the technology. If I know this technology at the graduation and possibly later even the master degree and the PhD level, that can give some much better sustainability construction across the country, not for my family, for my city, the whole nation, whole nation. So this type of the element we have to incorporate in our education curriculum. And that gives a better understanding and better benefit for all of us. We can do that. Another issue nowadays, private school versus the public school. It is just race for learning, race for skill development, recognition and placement. When the webinar started, the students started to join the program, and within 3 months, they have get the certificate like 30 certificates. Just acquire it. Just I make you understand. Suppose I take the education offline from the private institutions. I have taken the offline from the public institutions. Having any difference? Yes, it's a lot of difference. That is the quality of education, discipline with the learning, facility, dedication of the faculty member, extracurricular activity. All these factors we know very well, very well. Sometimes alumni networks and their recognition in the society also create placement part. At the same time, we just try to compare the fees and placement and the salary. Then we realize here's really a thin line between the private school and the public school that we have to overcome through the education for the sustainable development. How it's possible? Just I just try to make this model you understand better. That is the formal education we know, non-formal education we also know, and informal education we also know. There's a multiple sector. Those are playing a role, maybe the government sector, private sector, local community, NGO, CBO, civil society, RWA, all this type of the stakeholder providing the some contribution for the formal education, non-formal education, informal education. So there are multiple stakeholders. Their partners is very important nowadays. Who will build the gap? That is the challenge. Teaching professor, teaching professors are the catalysts. So partnership to incorporate education for the sustainable development for creativity and innovation in education, teaching and learning. This model needs to be. Some housing society do much better things for the recycling of the water and the solid waste management, something like that. So now the time has come. We have to incorporate the education for the sustainable development. But these models also needs a lot of things. And for that purpose, this model needs to be explored by the faculty members. And I think one more latest topic, that is the impact of COVID-19 on quality of education and sustainable development. COVID-19, lifelong experience for us. Good research paper published in Spring. So that is important to also understand, because during the PhD time, our habit become to read to all the this national international research paper. So from here, we just try to understand how this paper, effect of COVID-19 on sustainable development goal, can do. Nice paper, wonderful paper. Really, that's why I always say to the organizer, why you not prepare some reading material for the participants by collecting all these type of things. Just have a look what happened. When the shift from offline to online system happened and the e-learning system came in force to continue teaching and learning practices and delivering the knowledge to the internet, intranet, extranet, outreach programs, satellite, interactive TV programs, recorded online classes, all these things automatically happen due to the shifting, due to the COVID-19 part. Really, this shifting going to affect the quality of education. Really, that shift can going to hinder the sustainable development part. That is the important issue that we should understand. We should understand. And the main important thing is, yes, each one has two sides, but main important thing is e-learner satisfaction. Satisfaction. E-instructor satisfaction. Their satisfaction is also important, and that is only happens once I put our whole heart for the development of sustainable development for our nation and society, then only that can be happen is possible. So this research paper, that effect of COVID-19 on sustainable development goal, is, we should go through it and just to understand how that can help us. Help us. If really that impact negative, then how this can be converted the opportunity for the sustainable development goal. I think that is my last slide. When it talks about the system transferred due to COVID-19 as a e-learning, then e-learner satisfaction, they have taken as 11 component here. Source I already mentioned, that is a paper. We have seen 11 components they have taken, and they have finally concluded that the dissatisfaction leads to dropout of the students and discontinue the students. So even if the e-learning have the maximum benefit, but we should at the same time satisfaction, motivation is important. As students, psychologically well-being is very, very important. And for that purpose, we have to strengthen the e-learning efforts at the all level of the learning and teaching. That exercise we have to do. We have to change, modify the syllabus, how this component can be incorporated so that this continues the spread. We have drop out of the students. Yes, a student's psychological behavior can be taken into consideration. Of course, now the time has come to understand, have any policy for the e-learning, have any policy for education for sustainable development. Now the time has come in the coordinated manner with all these institution of architecture and the engineering institution, frame a framework to move from paper to practice. We have to practice it. Whatever things we are doing all the time on the paper, now it is going to be the e-learning part, digital form. So how that can be converted, that is important. And for that purpose, the multi-disciplinary approach is required in the syllabus, in the teaching, in the practice. Because after the education, we are just creating job seeker. But now the time has come, job creator. Time has come, job provider. Time has come, create to the innovators. And by doing these things through the education, we can achieve to the sustainability. With this word, thank you very much for patiently listen to me. So
second speaker. Today we have with us Professor Rashmi B Tandon, ma'am. Welcome, ma'am. Professor Rashmi Baluja Tandon is an architect and urban regional planner involved in professional practice since 1998. She is a partner to an architectural firm, AE Studio, based in New Delhi. She has a teaching experience of 20 years and is currently a professor, coordinator academic at College of Architecture, Vastukala Academy, affiliated to Guru Gobind Singh Indraprasth University at New Delhi. She is an associate member of the Indian Institute of Architects and Institute of Town Planners, India, and is currently pursuing a PhD part-time from the School of Planning and Architecture, New Delhi. As a partner to the firm AE Studio New Delhi, she has designed various educational institutions, housing projects, and interior projects. She is passionate about teaching and research. Her areas of interest include architecture, education, pedagogy, quality of education, campus planning, and the theory of architecture. We're really honored to have you, ma'am. May I now request you to kindly start your talk on the topic skills and competencies as enabling essentials for quality in architecture education.
Thank you. Thank you for this nice introduction, Shivani. And I would take this opportunity to thank COA-TRC and Professor Navneet Munot for having me over for this talk. And I really feel privileged to be part of this and would like to share my thoughts and insights related to architecture education. And this is a phenomenal thing, which COA-TRC is doing since last 2-3 years. And COVID has definitely made things possible in the virtual manner. And more such programs have allowed us to, interact and learn and meet each other in this manner. So this, I think, is a great opportunity. So give me some time to just, can I share my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So yeah, is my screen visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, good afternoon to one and all present here for this national online. Just give me a minute. Can I hide these bars which are on the screen?
And you can put it on a full screen mode also.
I have done full screen, but the annotation bar is right on top. Can that be removed? No, okay, I have moved it down. So, okay, yes. So good afternoon to one and all present here. And I really feel grateful for having me over here. And my talk is on skills and competencies as enabling essentials for quality in architecture education. Dr. Pawan Kumar has already covered a large ground and in a way has made things easier for me because he's touched on various issues and initiatives the government is taking and how things need to be, structured and how they need to be going in the coming years. So I think, Dr. Pawan, you have done, your talk was very informative and has definitely covered large ground. But in my presentation and talk, I would be pertinently talking on architecture education and focusing on skills and competencies and how they are essential for the quality. So I would be touching on quality aspects and how these skills become very important for employability and success of graduates. So okay, so the contents of my presentation include a little bit about SDG and the prevailing scenario. It also talks about perspective plan, which Dr. Kumar spoke in his presentation, and then the prevailing scenario of architecture education in our country. And then I will be touching some base on how history has been important for us to understand how education has shaped over the years and how it has evolved. And definitely we've grown big in numbers, as in the number of schools. There were only 4 when we became independent. And now we have over 475 schools in India. So we've definitely grown in number, but when it comes to quality, the quality has definitely not been at par with the global standards. So I would be touching on certain gaps which are in architecture education. Then I would try to appraise everyone with the policies prevailing over the time, and how various policies have been talking about various issues related to quality and sustainability, and how NEP in more than one ways, is kind of compliant to SDG goals and has been talking about certain things which show an implication on architecture education. Then I would be explaining in detail how minimum standards of architecture education. Now, this is very important for us to understand that this is the only government document available to us in as respect to architecture education, or that we can follow and take as a base to project and understand everything around it. So that this becomes like a sacrosanct, and I am revolving around it, and I've tried to even dissect it and try it. I will be showing you in my presentation how various things are already included in the minimum standards, and how we need to be more flexible in terms of our requirements when it comes to the importance and distribution of skills in architecture education. And because we have 21st century skills, we have so many skills which are now required as graduate attributes. So how they become important. Then in my last segment, I would be talking on evaluation and graduate attributes, and the importance of outcome-based education and the various accreditations being followed in our country, and how quality ultimately can be achieved. So moving on. This part is already covered, but I'll just, as a background, it became very important for me to include these slides, because I just thought today is the first day and we need to definitely build up some kind of a background. So I included this. So SDG as a plan, as an agenda, is a plan of action for people, planet, and prosperity. And it comprises of 17 sustainable development goals, which are all listed over here. Then Agenda 4, which is the theme of our FDP today, is catering to quality education. And achieving inclusive and quality education for all reaffirms the belief that education is one of the most powerful and proven vehicles for sustainable development. Now, Dr. Kumar has already spoken about targets, those 10 targets which Quality Education Agenda 4 talks about. The first target being free primary and secondary education, then equal access to quality primary education, equal access to affordable technical vocation and higher education. Now, for us, when it comes to the topic of...
Hello, ma'am, the screen is not visible.
Screen is not visible.
Ma'am, the slides are not moving. We can only see the first slide.
Okay, let me just stop it and maybe reshare it. I'm so sorry for this. How should I stop it now? Is it visible now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so should I go back to my second slide?
Ma'am, you can continue with the topic now.
Okay, so I told you about the contents of my talk. So is this visible? Because now I have not made it full screen. Maybe that full screen was stopping the screen share. So is it visible to everyone?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Okay, yes, perfect. So, okay, coming to the sustainable goals, I just defined what the sustainable goals are and how quality education, the fourth agenda talks about. And these are the various targets which even Dr. Kumar has covered. Now, just because my topic of talk today is skills and competencies as enabling essentials for quality in architecture education. So I'm targeting more on that. So at target 4.4 by 2030 substantially increase the number of youth and adults who have relevant skills, including technical and vocational skills for employment, decent jobs, and entrepreneurship. So this becomes important for us for our understanding. and as a background thing. Then the target 4.5, 4.6, 7, and all these, they include to eliminate discrimination in education, then universal literacy and numeracy, education for sustainable development and global citizenship. This is very important. Dr. Kumar has already covered up large ground on how this sustainable development and global citizenship becomes very important for us to understand and imply in our overall overall conduct. So and education becomes very important. So I'm touching on, in my next slides, I'm touching on how it becomes important as in quality education. The fourth agenda is the primary education, and most of other agendas just revolve around it. So the knowledge and skills needed to promote sustainable development and build and upgrade educational facilities, enrollment in higher education, including vocational training and information and communication technology, technical engineering and scientific programs, developed countries and other developing countries. And they've definitely increased the supply of qualified teachers, because without qualified teachers, we cannot expect employable graduates. So this is something very, very important. Now, Sustainable Development Goal, SDG, is the education goal, and it aims to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. So this quality education and lifelong learning are the key words we need to be, really understanding and appreciating in the entire conduct. So the 5 other SDGs with direct reference to education. Now, it is not just the quality education which matters. These are the other associated agendas, like health and well-being, which is SDG 3, then gender equality, which is SDG 5, decent work and sustainable growth, SDG 8, responsible consumption and production, SDG 12, and climate change mitigation, SDG 3. So all these are ultimately important holistically to achieve the goals. Now, I prepared this slide to make everybody understand that we have these 17 agendas and how quality of education becomes the core and everything revolves around it. So once we have quality education, there would be a direct impact on decent work and economic growth, direct impact on industry, innovation and infrastructure, direct impact on responsible consumption and production, and partnership for the goals. And definitely the innovation fosters clean water and sanitation, affordable clean energy, lifelong water, and life below water and life on land. And once we have achieved all this, and this would definitely lead to no poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, gender equality, reduced inequalities, sustainable cities and communities, climate action, and people justice and strong institutions. So all the 17 agendas are on the same sheet, but rearranged in a different order, and how they have their interdependence on each other. This is what we got to understand. Now, Dr. Kumar has already spoken about perspective plan, and this came out in August 2020 by COA, which talks about the growth of architecture education. Now, the projections considered while assessing the demand for tomorrow are the growth of architectural colleges concentrated in some regions. So we see a large disparity in terms of number of colleges are more in a particular state and less in other states. So there is a wide disparity. So perspective plan actually aims to have parity, and in my next slide I will be showing you those numbers. Then response to increased demand for admission to architectural colleges, awareness of profession should grow, and then possible job opportunities in expanding sectors, growing GDP and per capita income in India, impact on construction and building industry. So these are the 4 background projections we have to keep in mind while assessing the demands for tomorrow. Now, definitely the building industry is the second largest employer in the country after agriculture, providing significant contribution to the nation's economy and employing a large number of people. And these numbers which I'm now quoting are really very critical for us to understand that last 2-3 years back, the contribution of the building industry to economy was 126 billion US dollars. And it was projected to be to reach 738 billion US dollars by the end of 2022. So this kind of projected growth definitely required more number of schools, more number of professionals, and the current gross enrollment ratio being 25.8, and perspective plan targets to achieve 50% by 2035. This is somehow in conjunction with the NEP also. I would be talking about NEP's implications in my further slides. So the emphasis, and definitely there is a current demand of 10 million houses in the country, and the emphasis is on accelerating construction of affordable housing and sustainability. Now the emphasis would be innovative technologies and achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, as laid down by the UN in the various agendas. And this has implication on developing skills in these specific areas, as it is a huge challenge that needs to be addressed in near future. So with the growing demand, we require to upscale everything in terms of number, but we also need to understand how quality needs to be balanced alongside. Now, compared to the other countries over here, we can see how the gross enrollment ratio is varying, and India is lagging behind after China, USA, and Germany. So it's only 23 in 2014, and the other countries show significant large numbers. Now, again, in 1947, when India became independent, there were only 4 architecture schools, which grew to 12 in 1972, 50 in 1991, 111 in 2004, and there was a big jump from 2004 to 2019. It was almost 4.5 times, 467 into 2019. So definitely there is a very this graph is rising, and in last 2 decades there has been a phenomenal growth in terms of number, but unfortunately we have not been able to match up with the quality to that level. And in addition to this, the thrust areas may be identified and appropriate skill development plans, such as the following areas like affordable housing, sustainable development, environmental sensitive buildings, landscape architecture, interior design, so and I mean, all these different domains need to be focused more in detail. Now, as I was talking about the wide disparity, there are states like Chandigarh which have 1:1543 architects to inhabitants ratio, whereas there are states like Bihar which have 1:2,1792, 1:2 lakh to almost 2 lakh population ratio from architect to inhabitant. So this is like a wide disparity. And the target of COA in this perspective plan is to match up to 1:9,000 by 2030 across the country. And we assume that there would be ever-growing need for these schools, but some kind of a equitable way where like we could match where the states which are lagging behind need to be having more schools in number, and some kind of a balance will be maintained. Now, another important thing to know, I mean, this is something alarming where like we see that number of architects who registered in 2017 were only 9,629. But according to the data, almost 24,000 people actually enroll architecture. They take up, I mean, there are that kind of seats across the country. But unfortunately, only 9,000 are taking Council of Architecture registration number, primarily because so many people are diversifying and digressing to different domains and not pursuing architecture in their later years, and they don't need the certification to pursue architecture. So when we see this happening, and we see that architecture definitely is the stepping stone or maybe a gateway to enter into the professional domain, we need to value add by adding subsequent, sufficient number of subjects and elective courses, and update on the skills which can be added to people. So that my talk definitely revolves around this premise, and this is what you all need to understand, the background understanding and need for the same. And it's also very alarming that that almost 25,000 seats are there, and all for 5 years, if we assume there are 1,25,000 students across the board, and out of the very little number of people who actually take who get registered, only 10% of those registered architects get into full-time teaching jobs, which is a very small number. And it's very difficult to actually meet the requirement of the teaching professionals. So this is where like this also causes a big gap, and this also causes the big mismatch. So in the coming years, we need to add on to all that. Now, as far as the demand supply equation globally is concerned, the various domains for global competence have been achieved by various countries. And we see that India is lagging behind immensely, where like India is only 0.023% architects per inhabitants, and Slovakia has the highest 0.74% architects per inhabitants. And even China has a low. I mean, it is 0.028 only. So Slovakia is 0.74. Then second in number is USA, according to this list which I have included. It is generally to give you an idea ki how badly we lack in numbers. I mean, though we are saying that our numbers are growing, but when it is compared to the other countries, other developed nations, we are still lagging behind. Now, coming to the historical part of the education scenario, India has always been known for its higher education. Everybody knows about Nalanda, Taxila, Vikramshila, and other universities in the ancient Indian times. So it always was known for all that, and it was a seat of great learning, and people from across the countries used to come. So whatever we talk about internationalization in today's time actually was happening way behind in those 5th century AD also. So, but unfortunately, all that has now gone down, and the kind of what you say, the international mobility which the world faces in terms of people going to different countries for a higher education, India gets only 1% of the global mobility, which is very less in number compared to the historical times. Now, there were so many universities and school of arts which were there in the pre-independence India, and Britishers also paid lot of attention to nurturing all that, and JJ School being the first of its kind which got affiliated with RIBA. And imagine that though in those times the certification before independence were being recognized by RIBA, and after 75 years of after so many years of our independence, unfortunately we are not even recognized by RIBA anymore. So this is the state of quality. We got to understand that there has been a depreciation to large extent, though we've grown in numbers. Now, post-independence, schools just kept on thriving. There were some schools which were offering diploma courses. There were some art schools. There were some technical schools which then got evolved in a better manner. So Bengal School of Engineering and VNIT Nagpur, these all are kind of the first ones after independence which came up with architecture programs. But as a part of nation building, when India got independent, IITs were set up, and the first of IITs that got set up were IIT Kharagpur. And it was here when Jawaharlal Nehru, our then Prime Minister, actually had a vision of having a nation with technological bent. So the Institute of Indian Institute of Technology, IIT, was set up with the help of. हेलो,
मैंने ही ऑर्डर किया था, वो मेरे को थोड़ा प्रिंसिपल से एक साइन लेके आना है।
हेलो,
हाँ, आप देखिए आइए। हाँ जी, नर्सिंग के ऊपर मेरे कैबिन के ऊपर।
हेलो,
Sorry, ma'am, for the inconvenience. Please continue.
Okay, I am audible now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, so yes, IIT Kharagpur, in collaboration to Massachusetts Institute of Technology, was an institute with technological bent. On the other side, JJ, there was an art school. It grew up as a art institute, and it had a ideology with art as its base. And the Delhi Polytechnic, which was renamed as School of Planning and Architecture, was very oriental in its approach. And then in 1962, later, CEPT came up with altogether a different approach and different pedagogy. So this is a general overview to everyone, and this is how various famous institutes which have great legacy have shaped up and have evolved over the time and have been responsible in shaping the kind of architecture that is prevailing in terms of built form that we see in our cities. So definitely there has been a big transformation when we see those colonial buildings, Art Deco buildings, and the buildings propagated by Britishers to the kind of building and the built environment being propagated by our own Indian architects who were trying to rebuild on their own vocabularies. And the first ones being Charles Correa, Doshi, Kanvinde, and so on, and Rajrival. So, I mean, everybody has been responsible in shaping, and they were all from different schools, and their ideologies and vocabulary has contributed immensely. Okay. So this slide actually talks about that there are various organizations and institutions which have been responsible in shaping architecture, education, and sustainable development goals definitely play a very important role in the current times. After 2015, they have been introduced that they are going to be responsible in a larger way in impacting not only the education but also the built form. So it becomes very important for us to understand it. I mean, of course, Council of Architecture and IIA being our parent organizations, they will always remain as these kind of affiliating bodies, and the COA being the body giving us minimum standards. And this, it's the only actually document which we can refer to for our education standards. Now, based on the opinions of the various experts, academicians, researchers, promoters, and professionals, and based on a lot of research related to this, it was identified that there are various gaps in prevailing in the architecture education. So broadly, I've tried to list them down in this list, where like they say, they are under the head admission process, curriculum, pedagogy, teaching processes, values and ethics, research and documentation, practice and education, quality standardization, multidisciplinary approach, internationalization, integration and technology, human resources, infrastructure, and skills. Now, as we all know, as admission process, our country follows a centralized kind of a method where like we have an aptitude test either by conducted either by NATA, which is for all the private institutions and some other institutions, but all the IITs, SPAs are governed by the National Testing Agency, which takes up JEE exam for them. And so our method is the testing through the aptitude test. But in other countries, the testing procedures are very different. So many times they have interviews, they have written tests, they have portfolios, and many other ways to judge the students and make them enter into the domain. But it is very important for us to know that ultimately the kind of students that enter into profession are very critical to understand that what kind of outcomes they can begin, they will become. So if like at entry level the students are not good, how can we expect them to be how can we expect them to transform totally 360 degrees in 5 years? So if we have a decent kind of an entry at the entry level, we can expect something to improve over the 5 years and hope for something better. So admission process need to be reviewed with that respect. Now, curriculum in any education we think about is the fulcrum of all the education of higher education. And NEP also suggests in transforming curriculum and all the various, it will try to improve various education methods to improving the curriculum. And multidisciplinary approach will definitely be the target as per NEP also. And this needs to include the elective courses, which can be vocational, skill-based, contextual, and region-specific. Now, this region-specific becomes very important because ours is a vast country with so many climatic zones and so many regional disparities. So we can definitely think of having a curriculum which is very much specific to the zones, and why to follow a universal kind of a curriculum all throughout the country. So this kind of a mismatch ultimately not allows people to take up things in more focused manner. So then also curriculum needs to be again meeting with the future trends and forecasts, and definitely be matching the global standards. Now, there should be a pedagogy being followed by every institute, and they can derive their own methods for different subjects, and certain flexibilities can always be given to faculty to devise out their own mechanisms based on the pedagogical framework. And till date, not many colleges are seen following it to that manner. So that leads to the unstructured way of performance and unstructured way of um, things happening, and ultimately the student, the stakeholder is the sufferer. Now, teaching philosophy is definitely, as when we say the teachers are responsible in so many ways, we need to be looking into teachers as human resources who are capable, who are committed, and who are energized for excellence in teaching and research. And these teachers need to be focused with the orientation that they are responsible for nurturing the students. And there should be some way where like we are having these FDP, more such programs, more such improvement programs, quality improvement programs, faculty development programs should keep happening, and there should be some kind of value addition also happening at faculty level. Then only we can expect things to move in a right direction. Now, value and ethics are very important, and unfortunately, the curriculum does not allow that kind of a scope to include it in our discourse and subjects. So, we need to sensitize students to understand what is academic honesty, non-plagiarism, and of course, they need to be innovative. But education in ethics and importance of public purpose should be made paramount, and in a way, the outlook should be changed. Now, practice and education, there has always been a debate that the theory and practice ultimately don't match, because there are several reasons for this mismatch, because we see so many professionals teaching in the institutions who are the fresh graduates, or who may not have had any kind of practical experience in the field. Leave apart practical experience, they don't even have the research experience. So this causes lot of trouble. And then the students are ultimately left with very theoretical knowledge, and when they come out in the field, they have not seen they have never applied their knowledge into in any way or any sense, and the employability ultimately suffers. And so many times we see that the architects who employ these interns in their offices, or who ultimately employ these fresh graduates, um, uh, these students and these fresh graduates take a lot of time through their experience in their offices to learn more. And maybe those 5 years of architecture education somewhere becomes little insufficient to make them um, be efficient in their field. Another important area is quality and standardization. As I told you, that quality is very important, and this can be achieved through standardizing certain things. And this quality at every level, whether it is at, there are certain reforms to be required. Infrastructure should be proper in college. The management should be giving a proper set of area. Learning environment should become very important. So everything is kind of interrelated, and the standardizations always help in a systematic approach, and those standardizations can be at a national level and at global level. So there should be some kind of standard ways where like people can achieve quality. Then multidisciplinary approach, I've already told you, as in so many people diversify, so many people we see these days leave architecture and pursue some other courses, which is okay. But we as educators, and maybe council as the promoter and the provider for these standards, should understand that we need to be little more flexible in our curriculum and approach, where like we provide more options to students, where like they can add some more value to their overall learning. And the stereotype kind of courses may not be the only way to deliver quality. So some way where like students have the availability of choices, and they can mix match, and they can Now, even the NEP is talking about all that. Maybe the implementation is taking some time, but in coming years, definitely there can be more flexibility, and this approach will bridge the gaps which are created in the last few decades. Technology is very important. Without technology, we would not have been sitting like this face to face, like we are sitting today. And this technology is something which is evolving every day. So, and we got to integrate this technology at every level, and it will definitely allow easy and faster learning. And in our overall approach, I mean, this e-learning is one method, but technology uh, matching the global benchmarks need to be incorporated. I've already spoken about internationalization, where like very minuscule 1% of global international mobility gets into India. Rather, large number of our students go abroad and study, and we are not able to attract many students in the country. So this is an unfortunate part. Once at the time of Nalanda, we were having thousands of lakhs of students from all over the country, all over the globe coming to India and study. But now we are not able to hold them in large numbers in that manner. So we need to encourage some exchange programs. We need to invite foreign universities. We need to have some collaborations. We can have offshore campuses. We can have collaborative way of exchanging our students, exchanging our faculty and programs. We can have some summer schools, winter schools in the other countries or the other states. So this, I mean, this can happen within our domain, where like we are sending our people, allowing others to come here, and that cross link is ultimately allowing more learning and more growth. Now, research is something which is very important, and it should not be only, it should be integrated at the pedagogical approach, and every faculty present over here should not take it as a task that we have to cover research as part of a dissertation or as part of seminar or any other research subject or course as part of the curriculum. Now, from first year only, I mean, this research component should be added to every subject, every assignment, or everything that you design and devise as a part of your lecture plan and program. Then only this will be inculcated in the students, and they would take it as a way of life. It's not something to be scared of, and it is something which is inculcated slowly and gradually. And even CBSE at school level has allowed and encouraged all these kind of research activities, and maybe in the coming years things would improve immensely. But we need to be a little more conscious. See, this minimum standards is only a document which gives us some direction, but as faculty we need to be a little more understanding enough to what you say to modify what is more suitable to our context. So considering that, we can devise out our own research exercises for students. And also the research needs to be encouraged at faculty level, at student level, and there should be grants by schools, by universities, and of course there are governmental grants which need to be increased more in number, and more research needs to be encouraged in the country. And unfortunately, this is the reason when we sit down and start researching on any topic, and when we use Google for our instant research, we encounter so many research papers from foreign countries, but there are very less in number of papers from our own country. So we need to, be starting with we need to have this habit of getting into research and adding more repository. So our repository will help in some way or the other in the coming years. So it should be encouraged. Then ODL, this online digital learning, definitely is something a way ahead. COVID has shown us in last 2 years. I mean, nothing was stopped, and it kept on going without any interruption. And this will be the new normal tomorrow, where like we will see blended learning happening. Even now things are better and we are back to offline classes, but in so many institutions and so many places, we are still depending on certain blended ways. Because everybody became digital, and everybody in last 2 years prepared so much of their presentations that they also prefer projecting it to the students. So either the schools need to supplement them with the required what you say, projectors and resources where like they can project, or the online way was okay. I think I'm taking too much time over here. I'll just skip them very quickly. So of course, construction technology, human resources, I told you, infrastructure is important, built environments are important. And so many schools still lack in infrastructure, still lack in resources. They're not sufficient labs, computers, softwares, library, etc. So till we have all this in good number and good quality, we cannot really expect too much from our students. We really cannot expect their employability to improve, because everything is in a way interrelated. And most important, the topic of my discourse today is skills. And skills are very, very important in our profession, and communication becomes the most important tool. And communication, whether it is oral, verbal, or written communication, and then the graphic communication is also equally important. We're like visual way of communicating through our drawings, through our presentations. They are the only means. So we need to supplement these in large numbers. Okay. Now, coming to how over the years policies have been there as kind of indicators of way ahead, though the recent one is NEP 2020, but there have been other policies and plans which have been talking about quality in the past. Like 12th year plan also talked about quality to be implemented at a higher education level, but somehow it never got that kind of a rigorous as a mechanism to implement at that level. But definitely NEP now has envisions an India-centric education system that contributes directly to transforming our nation's sustainably and an equitable and vibrant knowledge society by providing higher education to all. So even NEP talks about sustainable ways and equitable and vibrant knowledge society. Now, NEP has this breakup where like the primary and the secondary and the senior secondary school will have a breakup in this manner, the new academic structure at school level. I'm not touching on that, but the higher education definitely, the important highlight is that it needs to achieve 50% of gross enrollment ratio by 2035 and 65% of gross enrollment ratio by 2047. So these are the projections of NEP. And of course, they are going to consolidate the current 800 universities and 40,000 colleges into 15,000 large institutions. So there would be some conglomerates happening where like lot many institutions would merge into each other and would behave as one big conglomerate or a big large institution. So that is what NEP envisions. Now, there are various implications of NEP on architecture education. I have tried to pinpoint only those parts which would affect our architecture education. And they are again at the admission process level, as I told you, I've already covered in my gaps wala slides where like I was talking about the admission of all UG programs is through NTA. And NEP allows multiple entry and exit points. So they're talking about 3 or 4 years of UG programs which are incremental and 4 years of programs with research and some age-free learning where like anybody and everybody can enter at any level and just exit at any level. So that flexibility would allow more people to join in courses and get educated. Now, and this would be somewhere matching the global standards and would be international in its nature. Again, NEP talks about curriculum having multidisciplinary approach, and it will have an academic bank of credit. So that credit system would be a DigiLocker. And it also aims at creating soft skills and vocational courses. So this is important for us to understand because I'm talking about these skills, and even NEP is actually encouraging that. And with this multidisciplinary approach, this gets more fitted into the part. Now, the pedagogy I've already spoken about. Pedagogy would include integrating the technology at every level, blending learning happening. And nowadays, these MOOCs and online digital virtual classes also are becoming equally important. So the technology needs to be integrated at that level. Then teaching processes can be devised, and student faculty ratio of 1:10 to be achieved. But in a recent notification from Council of Architecture, we received student faculty ratio as 1:8. Now, from now onwards, we have to follow 1:8 ratio. Mentoring programs, mentoring missions, these will be the highlights of the NEP. Then ODL, I've already talked about MOOCs, ODL. Then institutional structure types, as I told you, these will, the institutions would collaborate and merge into larger disciplinary, multidisciplinary universities. And based on their number, they would be, given different titles. And now, again, an alarming thing, number of researchers per lakh population in India are only 15, whereas in China, there are 111 per lakh. In USA, 423 per lakh, and in Israel, 825. So we are definitely lagging in terms of research. This needs to be upscaled. We need to be a little more conscious that, and everybody should get into research. And there are these regulatory bodies which will be the bigger players tomorrow, like for architecture domain, regulatory bodies like COA to become as PSSB, which are professional standard setting body. So we will have these PSSB set up, and they would be having accreditations compulsorily happening for institutions every 5 years. So now we don't have compulsory accreditations. Very few institutes go for accreditation. Then a gap between education and practice will reduce, and there will be more competitions. There would be long-term, short-term, and medium-term plans for institutions to follow. Internationalization would be encouraged. Transfer of credits would be made possible, and private higher education institutes will arrange their funding. There would be PPP models offered for financing. Okay, so now I would just come straight away to what minimum standards of architecture education is actually talking about. So this is a breakup from what a minimum standard says. These are the various courses being offered under different heads. As you all know, we have these core subjects, including basic design, architecture design project thesis, architectural graphics, drawing, history of architecture, principle or theory of architecture, urban design, human settlement, housing, landscape, site planning, carpentry workshop, specification, cost estimation, and budgeting. So these core subjects take up 50% of the credits. Now there are 20% of building sciences and applied engineering, which take up 20%, which includes building materials, building construction, applied mechanics, structural design and systems, climatology, building sciences, building services, surveying and leveling, acoustics, environmental lab, environmental science and architecture. Then there are professional electives where it is around 10%, and you can choose from these given electives, which is 10%. But these professional electives are related directly or indirectly related to the main domain, to the core domain. And then the one marked over here are open electives. So course, which is 5%, courses approved by institutions or university from subjects of study other than architecture, which will add value to the course and enable the overall development. So COA is allowing 5% of these open electives to be chosen by universities or schools on their own, and which are other than the courses offered. Another 10%, which is kind of a mandatory compulsory thing for everyone, which includes professional practice, internship or practical training, project management, dissertation, seminar, research methodology. So it includes around 10% of the course credit system. But unfortunately, fortunately, this is the skill enhancement courses take up only 5% of the overall breakup, and they include communication skill, computer studio, building information modeling, digital graphic and art, entrepreneur skills, and foreign languages. So this is the background which I want to build on, and I would be now taking you to the requirement of the skills in the coming times and how 21st century skills are the skills required for the employability and competencies in the coming times, and how this breakup of COA ultimately becomes insufficient in a way to meet those goals and standards. And when we say that employability is a larger factor which we are facing is not, people are not getting employed or not getting respectable jobs, or not, the attributes are not sufficient. So there is some gap over here which we need to address and understand. Okay, so this is what I covered, yeah, which we call as compulsory courses, PAECC. Then these are skill enhancement courses. Now, straight away coming to the various skills which we would require our employable graduates to acquire. They would be either hard skills or soft skills. So for everybody's convenience, I have divided these skills into two parts, the hard skills and the soft skills. And hard skills are those core skills which are the compulsory subjects and things which are, coming under a very structured way. I mean, you need to acquire those as cognitive skills or effective skills. For example, to have knowledge of design and to imply knowledge of design or drawing or graphics into your project that you are given. Then there would be uh, application of building services, application of structures, application of materials. So all those would be part of cognitive skills, which are hard skills. And there would be certain effective skills, which would include things like things related to research, things related to more effectively analyzing analytical skills, So those would also become hard skills. But more important are soft skills, which are psychometric and transformative in nature. Now, as per our research, these have been divided in such a manner that the hard skills, which include the cognitive and effective skills, they take up 50% of the weightage of the credits. But the psychometer skills, which I have listed down over here again in type 1, type 2, type 3, they should be around 37%. Then only can we meet the requirement of employable graduates and achieve the graduate attributes fully. So these have been again divided into type 1, type 2, type 3, which include communication skills, critical thinking and problem solving, creativity and innovation. Type 2 includes lifelong learning and information management, technology skills, information literacy, media literacy, ICT literacy. Type 3 includes social and cross-cultural skills, productivity and accountability, initiative and self-direction, leadership and responsibility, morale and professional ethics, entrepreneur skills, teamwork skills, leadership skills, planning and organizational skills, self-management skills, and marketing skills. So these all need to be incorporated through, these need to be value added through various subjects and electives being offered at every stage, not just a plug-in at the final fourth year stage or at the third year stage. So, these need to be distributed across the years, and these need to be plugged in along with the core domains. So, moving ahead. Yeah, another important thing are the transformative skills, which include the all-round transformation of an individual. Now, according to various researchers, this is an acceptable fact that employability skills for graduates include skill of communication, skill of ICT, skill of critical thinking, skill of problem solving, teamwork, moral ethics, entrepreneurship, workshop practice, creativity skill, leadership skill. So all together would make you employable in more than one way. Also, this shows the types of employability skills, which are cognitive, interpersonal, and intrapersonal, and how they have this kind of a interdependency on each other. So the fundamental skills such as communication, managing information, using numbers, thinking and problem solving are the fundamental skills. Then the personal management skills such as demonstrating positive attitudes and behaviors, most being responsible and adaptable, learning continuously, and working safely. Teamwork skills such as working and with others and participating in projects and tasks. In addition, innovation skills outlined in the following areas. So these are various skills which need to be put together, and these are accepted in larger number of higher educational institutes across the world. Now, to make things easier, to make you understand how these skills need to be transformed into learning outcomes, because ultimately the learning outcomes are what we are interested in. So the I have applied Bloom's taxonomy, which says remember, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. So this pyramid on Bloom's taxonomy has been applied, and the cognitive and affective skills have been listed down in the same order. We're like remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, creating, research, technical skills, environment, and sustainability for effective skills have been classified. And psychometric skill, as I told you, include communication, behavioral skills, human values and ethics, contribution as global citizens, lifelong learning, demonstrate characteristics of expert, and then of course transformative skills involve total transformation. And both psychometric and transformative skills add to the personal effectiveness of a person, and cognitive and affective skills add to the intellectual autonomy. Now, while tabulating all this and while talking about all this, it's very important to understand what outcome-based education is. Ultimately, we are aiming for an outcome-based education, and it's a process that involves restructuring of curriculum, assessment and reporting practices in education to reflect the achievement of high-order learning and mastery rather than the accumulation of course credits. Now, globalization has brought in a clear shift from education as transmission of expert knowledge to education as building learner competencies, including learning to learn and lifelong learning. So this is most important. I think lifelong learning should be the main aim, and the achieving learning competencies. Then understanding fundamentals very well and learning new skills, competencies that would enable individuals to cope up with demands of the rapidly changing workplace. Then prepare global architects who will have to solve problems and shoulder challenges which are not even known today. Outcome-based education is targeted to achieve desirable outcomes in terms of knowledge, skill, attitudes, and behavior at the end of the program. And teaching with this awareness and making the associated effort constitutes outcome-based education. This entails a regular methodology for ascertaining the attainment of outcomes and benchmarking these against the program outcomes. So we need to be aware of our program outcomes. We need to be aware of what learning outcomes we are expecting, and to attain these outcomes, we need to have some benchmarking standards. Now, through accreditation, the following main purposes are served: support and advise technical institutions in the maintenance and enhancement of quality, confidence and assurance on quality to various stakeholders, including students, assurance of the good standing of the institution to government departments and the other interested bodies, and enabling the institutions to state publicly that has voluntarily accepted assessment of its systems and processes by MBA and has satisfied all the requirements for operation and maintenance of quality of education. Now, this OBE definitely, the learning outcomes have three major characteristics. They specify an action by the student, learner that is observable. They specify an action by the student, learners that is measurable. They specify an action that is done by the student or learner than the faculty member, rather than the faculty member. Now, these learning outcomes teach enhancement of learning, data analysis and reporting, evidence of learning, teaching and learning outcomes. This all includes the OBE framework, and stepwise OBE approach would include conceive and draw vision, mission, quality policy. And this is important. We need to draw out our graduate attributes. What are we expecting from our graduates? Then the program objectives are to be drawn out, program outcomes of each program, then course outcomes for each paper. Every subject would have its own outcomes. Then we need to have a rubric for assessment. This is something very important, that this rubric should be known or should be devised out for proper assessment. And there are methods and ways in which the assessment can be done. There could be surveys, there could be question papers, there could be seminars, there could be various methods of workshops. I mean, so many other ways in which these can be assessed. So assessment tools can be then applied, and the outcomes can be assessed. So this is a graph which actually shows how the mission, this blue dot is kind of a mission, and the program educational objectives are over here, and they lead to the program outcomes, and then the course outcomes. So they have their interdependency in this manner, and they are responsible for the graduate attributes. So basically, they have a cross interdependency on each other, and subsequently we derive at the graduate attributes. And the graduate attributes of the 21st century, which are added in the recent times, the transversal skill that enable them to work independently as self-driven lifelong learners and innovators, work collaboratively and respect diverse viewpoints, think critically about new challenges, apply their knowledge in novel situations to solve new problems, communicate via a range of technologies and methods, work persistently in the face of difficult challenges. So these are the new additions to the attributes which we got to incorporate in our understanding and overall way of devising out learning outcomes for students at every level, at course level, at program level, and the objectives need to be met. Now, moving ahead, I would like to touch on the accreditation scenario prevailing in India. This is important for us to understand, because when we talk about outcome-based education, when we talk about any kind of validation, where like we talk about any kind of way where like we can assess, so definitely there should be some method to see whether we are going in the right direction or not. And accreditation allows us to achieve those domains. So in our country, NAC, NBA are the main. I'll just come to the comparative chart because these are very lengthy. I'll just skip these few slides and come to a comparative chart. Yeah. So National Assessment and Accreditation Council, National Board of Accreditation, then National Institutional Ranking, NIRF. So I've included these three different ways in which we can actually compare and see where we stand. So NAC certification is a measure to evaluate and then guarantee a standard of education provided in higher institutions across the nation. The UGC, University Grant Commission, has issued a decree stipulating that every university and faculty must get certification by the council. So this is about NAC. Whereas NBA, the National Board of Accreditation India, was initially established by AICTE and All India Council of Technical Education, and to assess the qualitative competence of the programs offered by educational institution from diploma level to postgraduate level in engineering and technology, management, pharmacy, architecture and related disciplines, which are approved by AICTE. So I mean, till last year, institutions were being even approved by AICTE. So NBA was being followed in this manner. Then NIRF ranking, the National Institutional Ranking Framework, was approved by the MHRD, Government of India, and the framework outlines a methodology to rank institutions across the country. Now, NAC evaluates education provided by higher education institutes. NBA accreditates the institutes based on competence and programs offered, and NIRF is the framework to rank institutions across the country. Now, they have their own criteria for assessment, and they vary in some way or the other. Now, NAC, the criteria included by NAC are curricular aspects, teaching, learning, and evaluation, research, consultancy and extension, infrastructure and learning resources, student support and progression, governance, leadership and management, innovations and best practices. Whereas NBA includes vision, mission, and program educational objectives, program outcomes, program curriculum, student performance, faculty contributions, facilities and technical support, academic support and teaching and learning processes, governance, institutional support and financial resources, campus infrastructure, continuous improvement. Now, NIRF also has certain criteria which include teaching learning resources, research and professional practices, graduate outcomes, peer perception, outreach and inclusivity. Now, these further are related to the OBE, which is outcome-based education. So under NAC, the key components of OBE are vision and mission of the institute, vision and mission of the department, program educational objectives, graduate attributes, program outcomes, course outcomes, and program specific criteria. Now, initially, NBA accreditation used to be based on input process. So it was not actually following the outcome-based model, but recently it has started accreditation based on outcomes. Now, NIRF education is outcome focused these days. Now the momentum has hiked with the NIRF 2021, where institutions are figuring out ways to improve the graduation outcome scores, which obviously would improve career holistically. So around 0.2 in NIRF ranking, around 0.25 or 25% is for the graduate outcomes. So that is where they have also recognized the importance of graduation outcomes, which are very critical for any kind of employability and competencies to be achieved for any graduate. So I've already talked about these 21st century graduate attributes. I'll just repeat very quickly. Work independently, work collaboratively, think critically about new challenges, apply their knowledge in novel situations, work persistently. And graduate attributes which form the student learning outcomes under NBA are engineering knowledge, problem analysis, design development of solutions, conduction, modern tool usage, the engineer and society, ethics, environment and sustainability, individual and teamwork, and communication. So as I told you, NIRF is taking 0.25 of the overall, 25 of the overall weightage. Now, graduate attributes which form, I mean, the inferences, like we need to understand these graduate attributes become critical to our understanding for any kind of a delivery into a quality education in terms of, I mean, how can we judge our quality if they are more employable, if they are able to meet more competencies. So this is how they are interrelated. Now, about the quality, I would just like to end saying this, that we need to understand that education is a service industry, and like any other service industry, the quality needs to be understood, and we need to look for thriving for best quality. And that can only be possible when our inputs at every level are full of quality. And there are no gaps in the overall path. As I mentioned, so many gaps which are prevailing, which need to be definitely be bridged. And by bridging those paths, we got to simultaneously understand the importance, how what all is lacking, and how can we actually supplement by having appropriate skills in our overall program. So these skills become more important, and these competencies and skills would be the enabling essentials to achieve quality. And even when we see all these SDG also talks about meeting those goals. NEP talks about that. Even in a subtle manner, minimum standards is talking about that. So we all are aware of all that. We all are very much almost there, but there is a very big step to be taken, and we need to recognize and we need to incorporate that, and then only can we expect things to improve in our country. Thank you. With this, I would just like to end. Thank you. Yeah,
Thank you so.
Yes, Shivani.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for this beautiful presentation. The slides were also very self-explanatory, and so was your talk. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
May I now invite the participants to ask any questions if they have?
Should I stop this?
Anybody has got any questions for ma'am? Okay, I think there are no questions, and it wasn't required. It was self-explanatory.
Or maybe they were too bored of all that. Everything was very boring for most of them.
No, ma'am, the presentation itself, and I mean, the slides were also very intriguing to look at. And I think it was very nice. It was
generous. You're being generous in your comments.
No, ma'am, not at all.
Sorry, can I have a question?
Yes, yes, Nirmalji.
Hello.
Please.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. That was a very eye-opening presentation and a very good compilation of all the impacts that we might have. My question is very specific to architecture colleges if they are going for any of these NAC or NBA accreditation. I understand the kind of norms which might be put up are more relevant to other colleges because number of colleges, let's say engineering colleges, are many as compared to architecture. So, is there any relaxation or anything very specific to architecture colleges accreditation that we get the benefit of?
Ultimately, the colleges which go in for accreditation are part of big universities, or a part of larger umbrella. So for standalone colleges, I don't think so. This accreditation can be very possible given the kind of criteria they are following. So we need to work on. I mean, that's the kind of a way forward where we can see that how we can try to come up with different criterias which are possible at different level. We cannot have a generic way of looking into it. I mean, there cannot be one way for all the different kinds of colleges. When we say we have institutions which are small institutions, medium-sized institutions, and large institutions, we have SPAs and IITs. Then we have some medium ones, and then we have some. I mean, out of 475 colleges, all are not SPAs and IITs. So how can we expect everything common for everyone? So you're very right. I mean, those graduate criterias or those criterias which need to be looked into accreditation need to be revised and be more structured pertaining to architecture domain. They're very generic, and of course they are more fulfilling the engineering part. You're very right, because they're more in number. They're not specific to architecture till now. I hope I have answered.
Yes. Thank you, ma'am. I had another small question.
Sure.
When is NEP happening, and when do we start working in architecture colleges with NEP? If you can just help us with the timeline.
Slowly and gradually, it has already started. As I know, SPA was some time back also offering that exit policy at third year level. I mean, after 3 years, many colleges have started with that exit policy. Many colleges have started with some, plugins in terms of electives. And COA is also conscious about it. Recently, 6 months back, I attended one NEP webinar being conducted jointly by SPA Delhi and COA, where President Habib Khan sir had shown something which they are working on. But yes, it's not fully come into being in a full-fledged manner. Definitely, they all are aware and they are trying to, see how things are possible. So in my slides, through my research, I've tried to see how this NEP is going to implicate on our architecture education scenario, because it's a big voluminous document and not everything can be just generally applied to our domain. We need to be specific to our requirements, and we need to understand our limitations, and we need to understand the context prevailing. So of course, these policies definitely are not just overnight job. I mean, they will take their own time, whether it is for higher education or school education. Even at CBSE level or school level, they have just started to think about all that. Maybe in next 5 years time, we would start seeing things more evidently and more clearly.
Yes, my question in fact was from the point of view that, as you said, some institutes have given the exit policy. Then they have to enter somewhere else, and if the entry is not available, then what do we do? So we are in a thinking mode that should we give the entry and the exit all together.
So if you exit after 3 years, it's just called BSc in architecture. So after BSc, I mean, of course, where to enter. Some colleges are even allowing people from different domains to enter into masters. Like I know CEPT has various programs. At PG level, they allow 3-year courses. I mean, 3-year bachelor degree to take up master courses. So likewise, slowly and gradually, things would start, because CEPT is a autonomous university. They are not being governed by any other dictates. But SPA and IITs are a little more, because they come under the direct government umbrella, so they will take their own time.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Ma'am, I would like to add, I think SPA Bhopal is also allowing now botany bachelors in landscape department.
Okay.
So
Wonderful.
slowly things are changing in
Yeah.
government sector also.
Yeah. That's good.
Um, Good evening, ma'am. I
Good.
have a question.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, first of all, it was a very good and informative session, I would say, because everything was discussed in detail. So really very informative.
Thank you.
Ma'am, my question is like, if I see basically for the private institutes, many institutes are facing the issues where when the students go out after their graduation, they really face the issues like having this. Lack of skills, which because you have explained very nicely about the skills and everything. So the practitioners obviously questions the skills required in the practice as well as compared to the architecture education which are provided to them.
Right.
So would this national education policy, the way it needs to be adopted by the architecture education, would help to bridge this kind of gap? Do you really think
See,
so?
national education policy is a broad document.
Hmm.
We as architecture domain people, or maybe the
Hmm.
council, has
Hmm.
to minutely look into what aspects we need to fulfill through our, how what all we need to incorporate. For example, if you talk about skills,
Hmm.
in architecture, our main medium of communication is drawings.
Yes.
So, I mean, no matter you can speak in Hindi, you can speak in English. I mean, that can be still understand. I mean, it is still understandable that verbal communication can be anything. You may not be very good at communication. Of course, if like you are good at communication, that adds to your value. But most important is your graphic skill.
Hmm.
Most important is your presentation skill.
Hmm.
So, I mean, definitely our only medium is that, and we need to understand how we can improve on that. So if at all your 4-year courses till first year to fourth year, you don't have enough courses which are providing any kind of value to your presentation skills, then there should be some more electives being offered, and students should be consciously adopting them. There were times when we were having manual drawings.
Yes,
I mean,
true.
now we have times when everything is so digital, and students are also very comfortable with that digital mode. But then there are so many softwares. They got to understand they just can't limit themselves to the knowledge of AutoCAD. Nowadays, there are so many complicated softwares, which parametric softwares, and so many things which are just going on.
Yes.
You need to incorporate and keep on adding. Value addition should be there. So students, faculty, institutes, I mean, program management, everybody should be aware of it, and they should try to provide it as I mean, they should try to offer it to students at every level. So many times, because of lack of resources, because of lack of computer facilities, because these softwares are expensive. If you get into learning,
Yes.
so
Yes. True.
colleges might not invest into that. So ultimately, the sufferers are students. So we got to recognize the importance of all that, because the technology is something which is ever evolving, and this is something which will let us have faster learning and effective learning. So why not have it? I mean, you cannot push it. I don't want to learn this particular thing now. Maybe I'll do it later. When it is available right now, I think we should do it now. Why push it later? So that can only happen when we start incorporating it in our curriculum. We just can't say that students take up some private tuition classes or go to any other computer centers and learn. So many students do that also in private colleges. And they are aware that they got to learn Grasshopper, they got to learn 3D Max or whatever. So they try to learn on their own. But that should not be the approach. I mean, it should be incorporated all throughout in the academics from the first year level. And slowly and gradually, the progression should be there. Easier software is going to complicated ones, and then more complex ones.
Okay. Small once again a small question, ma'am.
Yeah.
Like when we see the national education policy for the higher educations, they have divided it in 4 years, right? So
Right.
right now our system architecture education says it for 5 years.
Hmm.
So obviously, would it be different for architecture education, or maybe we have to rework, like as a council of architecture needs to rework for as per the national education, because 4 and 5 year has a 1 year gap. So if we
So I
try
think
to for
Council is working out different models where like we will have 3+2, 4+1, 4+2, where like you will have consolidated master's degree in 6 years. So the council has already started to work on various things, which I am not aware of, but just because I've attended one webinar where like President Habib Khan had shown certain presentations, so which keeps me informed that yeah, they have already started into all that. But till date, no official document has been released. Which, but definitely, if you interpret NEP, there would be multiple models: diploma in architecture, or BSc in architecture. Then there would be 4-year plus 2-year model, 5+1, 4+2. Likewise, there would be multiple ways in which it could be taken up. And then this would give flexibility to students. They can, at their own pace and in their own way, exit after 3 years, exit after 4 years, or rejoin after a gap and again start pursuing it and complete their education. So all those are being worked on. And because it's like a age-free learning, NEP is saying that you can enter at any age. They're not limiting you that there should be the minimum age requirement. So that's also one flexible thing.
Thank you, ma'am.
Welcome.
Ma'am, in the chat section, we have one question from Tanvi, architect Tanvi.
Okay.
She says, when can we start teaching students about architecture research?
See, Tanvi, can you just turn on your camera and...
Yes, ma'am, I'm listening to you.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, you can start with this. The desktop doesn't have a camera.
Okay, no problem.
So you can.
So what I mean, see, there is no age for starting up research. Ideally, things should start at, they should start at school level. CBSE is also now incorporating research. But as a young teacher, as a young professional, what I feel, when I was also taking up first year, I was teaching first year, even now when I program for them, I make sure whatever assignments, whatever little things, projects that are planned for a student should involve ample research.
Okay.
So at the entry level, when first year enters into the program at first year level, they should be there and then given ample, opportunity to start researching. And slowly the level of research should keep on adding. It should not, you cannot expect dissertation kind of thing happening at first year, of course.
Right,
but
right.
small components need to be started at a very nascent stage.
Okay. Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay.
Hello, ma'am.
Yeah.
Reshma here. It was a good presentation. But I just want to ask you one question. Research is happening. This is a continuation to the previous question. Research is happening from the first year onwards. They are given assignments. And like you said, the COA architectural curriculum covers a vast majority of topics. But one concern is that the critical analysis part is very important. They are asked to do a lot of exercises, asked to research on a lot of subjects, but that reflection skill or the analysis skill is missing in a majority of students, as well as all the persons. So what is your approach to critical analysis?
So this is where we as educators need to, pitch in, because definitely we cannot expect too much from the student at first year level. Yes. Student might just do some documentation exercises, will come up with some research and try. First of all, organizing that research and putting it in order is also a big thing, Even if a student is able to put it together and document it properly, that's also one step achieved. But we as educators can then, supplement them with some more insights and can, provide them with some more steps to take forward. And definitely we cannot expect that student at first year level to come up with a full-fledged thing in a analyzed way, as you are saying, a critical analysis done for anything. So we need to be guiding them at every step, and slowly and gradually, their perception would get into that mode and they would start to analyze on their own. You should get into some discussions, you should get into some kind of sensitization sessions where like small groups are indulged together, where like they are interacting, such research should not be done individually, first of all. That's what I feel. Maybe it should be introduced in small groups where like they're able to interact, they're able to bond with each other at that first year level. And while doing so, they are, talking about it, and through their interactions, they are coming up with some analysis. And maybe half the job is done when they do this. And then that's the time where like you as a teacher can, give them more insights, some subtle way. Don't be very direct, or don't just spoon feed them, but just give them some hints or direction so that they can start thinking more. Our job is to make them think. Our job is to just sensitize them and make them understand things in more enjoyable manner. So I think it will start happening. Trust me. I mean, this will take some time, but it really makes a difference.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
I think we are done with the questions for today.
Okay.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you.
I would like to summarize your talk. So it was actually a very informative talk about enabling essentials for quality architecture education. So our speaker today initially explained the structure of her presentation and started off with the 5 other SDGs, which with the direct reference to education. Then she explained the segregation and interdependence of all the 17 SDGs on each other. Moving ahead, she discussed the perspective plan, growth of architectural education 2020, growth of architecture colleges, and their concentration in some regions, as a matter of fact, which is to be worried about, gross enrollment ratio of India as compared to other countries, which we found was quite low. Then she discussed the growth in architecture colleges that was found to be like 111 in 2004 to 467 in 2019, and thrust areas that need to be identified. She discussed about the alarming rate of dropouts from architecture colleges, 10% of people getting into full-time teaching, which is again a matter of to be worried about, and which in turn takes up the demand and supply gap in India. Then she discussed about the global competence, its 4 domains, the historical part of Indian education system, depreciation in quality through numbers that have increased, and educational institutions in India's post-independence. She also discussed about the architecture of such institutions as well, how our famous architects have made them so beautifully. Then importance of regulatory organizations and institutions related to architecture. She discussed about the gaps in the prevailing architecture education, like the admission process, pedagogy, practice in education, infrastructure and skills, values and ethics, curriculum, integration of technology, etc., and the need for the curriculum to match the global standards and demands. More multidisciplinary and flexible curriculum is required to bridge the gap. That is what she discussed about in detail. And the need for summer and winter schools for more exposure to the students. Need for the research repository, online digital learning as the new age technology, and infrastructure and resources as a big gap that needs to be sought out by the institutions. She also discussed the importance of communication and visual skills, visual communication and oral communication, which needs to be worked upon, and also the history of education policies in India as per the NEP. She discussed about the gross enrollment ratio that NEP aims to have, that is 50% by 2035 and 65% by 2047. She discussed about the bigger conglomerations of institutions into bigger institutions and the main aspects of architectural education. She also discussed the student and teacher ratio, which was earlier 1:10 and is going to be now 1:8 in architectural institutions as per COA, and suggested a list of courses and specified in minimum standards of architectural education 2020. She discussed and explained the hard and soft skills that are required, like the cognitive and affective skills and psychometric and transformative skills. She discussed Bloom's taxonomy as a tool to enhance different types of skills, and OBE framework and its outcomes. She compared and discussed in detail the acquisition scenario in India, that is NAC, NB, and NIRF, and also discussed how they are particularly not designed to judge the architecture colleges, the standalone colleges. So this is what we have learned from you, ma'am. And it was actually a very good presentation. And we are very thankful that you can spare your precious time. And I think all the queries have been beautifully dealt with. I think nobody has got any more confusions regarding anything that you presented. The slides were excellently and were very excellent. Thank you so much, ma'am. We look forward to have you more.
Sure, anytime. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you
having
so much.
me. I also enjoyed. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
So thank you, participants. And tomorrow we shall meet at 2 p.m. again with 2 more speakers. I would like to end this meeting. Navneet sir, can I end this meeting now?
Ma'am, can I just have a question?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so, hello?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Sorry, ma'am, I was it was a very amazing presentation, but it would be great if you could just get the materials as well for reference, maybe the papers and all you suggested. So maybe we can read through it because it's a pretty, data-filled presentation. So if that's
So I
possible.
can see mostly is through the knowledge I've acquired over the years, to be very frank. But for facts and figures, what I have perspective plan from COA is available on the website of COA. So you can download it directly from there. Then I've
Okay.
referred to NEP 2020. That's also freely downloadable from the website, National Education Policy. It's very much there. Then all the accreditation documents are the free downloads. I mean, those 3 documents for NAC, NBA, and NIRF, that is what you can refer to.
Okay, ma'am, sure. Thank you.
I think this would suffice your purpose. I mean, mostly what I understand is generally being referred from there. But those gaps which I have been talking about, that's like an immense research. There is no one reference which I can quote on. There are maybe more than 100 or 150 documents which have been referred to actually identify those gaps. So I'm sorry, I won't be able to provide you with that list. But and it's not a day's job to cover up all that. That has I've invested so many months to come up to that list of gaps.
Yes, ma'am. That references were great. Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
Thank you.
those which are the ready downloadable manuals, that would give you sufficient ground to cover up what you want. And you can always contact me. I mean, I left my email ID on the chat box.
Sure, would love to. Thank
Get
you.
back to you. Thank
Yeah.
you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you all the participants for being here. You all may now leave the meeting. I would like to end the meeting now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
So you'll be sharing this video link?
Yes, ma'am. It will be shared on the YouTube channel of COA.
Okay.
TRC. So
Okay,
it will be available there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.